Hello, everyone. Welcome to Indie Game Club. We are so excited to have you here with us today. Whether you're watching on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, we really appreciate you. Definitely make sure to jump in that chat. Let us know what you think all along. We try to make this as interactive as possible. My name is Michael Zytkow. I'm the founder and executive director of Potions and Pixels. We are a nonprofit organization based out of beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina, where we're streaming from right now. Super excited to have an amazing group of guests this week. You know, sometimes on the show, each week is a little different. Sometimes we go through a variety of indie games. Sometimes it's a Halloween themed. We had a cats and dogs themed episode. We try to do some creative stuff with this, and we're super excited today to have an LGBTQ focused indie game club. So we're going to be looking at 4 games that have an LGBTQ focus, and we can't wait to discuss that. And in fact, we're going to be joined today. You see 2 new guests right here. We're joined by 2 amazing folks from a local organization called the Charlotte Gamers Network. So as we do our introductions, I can't wait to have you hear more about them right here. And we also should say, we want to give a shout out. We see several of the developers of the games that we're going to be discussing in the Twitch chat. So we always love that. That's been something we've been seeing a lot of lately, so we really appreciate that. Can't wait to discuss your game. Feel free to jump into the conversation as well. But let's start off over here with Zach, who you actually have seen before. Zach, if you don't mind waving to the screen for everybody. If you are a follower of Potions and Pixels, you know we had a 2-part conversation where we explored the game Tell Me Why, which was the first game from a major studio and publisher to feature a transgender protagonist. It's a really fun game. It's 3 episodes, 3 chapters, each about 3 hours, and you'll recognize Zach from both of those episodes, and we had a really great conversation. So, Zach, can you introduce yourself for everybody, please, and tell them a bit about Charlotte Gamers Network?
Sure. I'm Zach Smith. As Michael put it, I am one of the co-founders of the Charlotte Gamers Network. We are currently, I believe, the largest LGBTQIA+ gaming community in Charlotte, North Carolina, I believe.
Awesome.
We're very inclusive. We love having all new members come. Most of our activity happens in Discord. We have weekly Jackbox events, weekly Among Us games, movie nights. Everything's obviously digitally focused with COVID right now, but we're all about creating a very inclusive, safe space for all of our gamers. Growing up gay, gaming was a huge escape for me from bullying and everything like that, and I think it's kind of resurfaced as a great escape for everyone in the dark times of COVID and everything else. So we're really all about sort of creating a safe space for our community. And we would love for everyone watching to join us and tag in on the fun. So
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. We love working with you guys, so super excited to have you join us.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. We love working with you all as well.
Love it. And as is tradition, if you're a regular viewer of all the stuff we do for Potions Pixels, even though we're all isolated in our own little areas, we always clap it up. Even if you're home alone right now, get those hands together and clap it up for all of our awesome guests. We'll clap up for each one of them. Awesome. David, let's toss it over to you, and you can tell us who you are and your involvement in Charlotte Gamers Network as well.
Hello, I am David McCrae, and I want to say again, thank you for having me on this stream. This is my very first stream ever, period.
Love
it. If I get nervous or say something stupid, don't hate me. I'm really excited to be working with CGM. I'm going to be the deputy director, so I'll be working really closely with Zach and trying to get us out more into Charlotte, get more involved with other organizations like yours, Potions and Pixels, and the Clean Alliance, and some others. So again, I'm super excited, super happy to be here to explore the art form that is gaming and all of its various, media, and how important it is to the LGBTQIA+ community. As we're progressing, in time, we're seeing more representation in video games, which is amazing. I wish I'd had that as a kid.
For sure.
So we're seeing that more and more, and developers and studios not being afraid to say that, from jump. Yes, this character is a part of that community, not that this character has become a part of that community because they were being pressured to be. They were written
That's
that way.
That's a great point.
Which is beautiful. So excited to be here and happy to talk about it.
I love it. Thanks so much for being here. Let's clap it up for David. Thank you. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, Derivative. Let the folks know who you are and where they can find you.
All right, I'm a Derivative. I'm a variety streamer, a variety obscure game streamer over at twitch.tv/Derivative. I play games that are overlooked and underrepresented. Um, Played a lot of LGBTQIA games on my stream before. That's kind of comes with the territory when you're playing these smaller games. You get very personal experiences. I've played a number of games dealing with some various experiences of developers in transitioning, in coming out as gay, all sorts of places. It's very autobiographical in a lot of sense, and I enjoy every time. So I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me again.
We always love having you and always love watching your stream. Make sure to check out Derivative's stream on Twitch. It's always, honestly, awesome time to discover really, as he said, really intimate, unique experiences. It's a great source for that, for sure. Let's clap it up for Derivative. Thank you, Derivative, as always. We love having you. And last, but certainly not least, is the indie goddess herself, Legend of the Star. Can you introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Yes, so for those of you that recognize me, hello. But I'm Legend of the Star. I stream on twitch.tv/Legend of the Star, and I exclusively play indies. Anything and everything, really. I'll try it at least once. Why not? Maybe I'll even try it twice. Who knows? But I love streaming indies. I think that they're the basis of all gaming, and a lot of people sleep on it. So I'm really proud to represent indie developers, indie publishers, on my stream as much as possible, and anything that is inclusive to everyone. I'm always happy to play and discuss on my stream at any time. So yeah, I'm also a stream team member of the Athena Alliance here that's local in North Carolina. I love these ladies. We've really only gotten together like this past few months, and with COVID, of course, we've gotten a lot closer, but we have so many events, and if you want to we include everyone and everything. So that's like one of my favorite parts about being a part of their team, and to be able to be with a group of women in gaming especially is very, very near and dear to me.
Absolutely. I love the gaming community in Charlotte. And it's amazing to see the Athena Alliance and Charlotte Gamers Network grow so rapidly, especially in 2020, a challenging time. It's super impressive, and it's so cool to see everybody work together. We love you, Legend of the Star. Let's clap it up for her. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you as always. Awesome. Well, we got 4 games lined up for you today. We always come with a variety of different experiences. Super excited. We went into these blind, as we traditionally do, so we're going to be giving you our thoughts about them. But first, we wanted to dedicate some time, as we traditionally do, to discuss a little indie game news. And so there's a pretty big topic, a pretty big, some bombshells yesterday that dropped. So if you've been on Twitter, if you've been following a lot of your regular game sites, I don't think there's a game site that didn't cover this. And that is around the game Devotion. And I know Derivative here I probably is the only one who's actually played it, because if you're familiar with the game, I'm saying of this group here, because the game was only out for about a week before it was yanked last year, and we'll go into that history a bit more, and Derivative, I might lean on you for some of the more specifics here. But let's look at this tweet that we have on the screen right here, and this is coming from GOG.com. If you're not familiar with GOG, originally went as Good Old Games. It was kind of the alternative to Steam and a lot of other digital platforms for old games that you might have not found, those games that were still stuck on CDs and discs, and they didn't have a digital adaptation. CD Projekt Red, who of course is the publisher of Cyberpunk 2077, The Witcher, they are also the owners of GOG, and as a first-generation American my family came from Poland, I've historically been, excited for CD Projekt Red's work. These past 2 weeks have been a pretty difficult time, to say the least, and I think it's there's definitely some criticism that can be leveled their way. So let's look at this tweet right here that we have from GOG. The development studio behind Devotion, announced that they were going to be re-releasing the game on GOG. Actually, tomorrow was the release date. And shortly after that started making its way around the gaming newsverse, we got this tweet from GOG saying this: earlier today, it was announced that the game Devotion is coming to GOG. After receiving many messages from gamers, we have decided not to list the game in our store, which of course sent a whole wave through the game world right here. So I'm gonna pop that trailer on. I won't have sound on it, so it'll be playing as we discuss. But Derivative, let's start with you. Not only can you give a little bit more background into the saga that is the release of this game, and then maybe we'll come back to you as far as to discuss your experience with it.
Yeah, sure. So Devotion is the second game by a company by the name of Red Candle Games. They're based out of Taiwan.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of games. They're horror games, but they focus on the culture and history of Thailand. So the second game that they released is taking place in the 1980s, which would have been right at the end of their martial law period with China. Obviously, Taiwan. I'm going to keep mixing those.
It's all good.
Taiwan and China do not have the greatest of relationships. And there was a piece of placeholder art that was used on a talisman in the game that, when roughly translated, said Xi Jinping, who is the leader of China, Winnie the Pooh, and moron. So it was just like four Chinese characters. It roughly translated to that. It was completely intended to be placeholder art. You could tell that by the fact that it takes place in the 1980s. He wasn't the leader of China in the 80s, so it was definitely a disgruntled situation. It was meant to be removed. They had another piece of art that makes a lot of sense playing the game. What ended up happening was the game got massively review bombed. The publisher ended up dropping them, and they decided, allegedly on their own accord, probably due to publisher dropping as well, to remove the game from Steam originally, with the intent of returning to the platform. They said once rational conversation could be had about it. They thought that, nearly 2 years later, rational conversation could happen about it. They got approval from GOG to put it on there. Obviously, they made their announcement. I'm guessing probably the same people who gave issues last time gave issues this time, and GOG rescinded their allowing of it. So now, if you don't know, the thing with Winnie the Pooh and Xi Jinping, he was like I guess it was like a Chinese internet meme.
Yeah.
That he looked a lot like Winnie the Pooh. He did not take that well, to say that very bluntly.
At least.
To the point where the movie, the Christopher Robin movie that came out a couple of years ago, absolutely banned from the country. Like, it is not allowed to air in it. I think Kingdom Hearts had some issues with being released over there. And this game, because of that one reference, basically got blacklisted because of it.
And we should clarify a couple things there. That Steam itself, the folks at Valve, owners of Steam, they weren't the ones that took it down. It was the publisher who and the development studio made, I guess, the decision, as you said, kind of from a coerced perspective. And the publisher's rights to publish, I think, were revoked in China as a result of this. So they faced severe financial repercussions because of this one element that, as someone who's played the game, from my understanding, you can play through the whole game and never even remotely see this thing. You have to actually be looking for it.
You have to be looking for it. And as I said, it was patched out next day. Like, it was noticed that this was in there. It was intended to be placeholder art. As I said, the original one said the Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh, moron. What it actually ended up saying when they changed it was Happy New Year, which makes sense in the context of the game. The area you're going through, it's New Year's time, so it makes sense that there would be signs saying that. But that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So now, currently, the only way you can play the game is if you had happened to get the game during Steam, during that 1 week that it was available, which I feel very lucky that I was able to do that. Or there was a physical release exclusive to Taiwan that is near impossible to find. I've seen it pop up on eBay a couple times, and it's gone anywhere from $175 to $250.
So, yeah, let's delve
So
into
Winnie the
that.
Pooh is banned in China? Is that what you're telling me? You're
Yes.
telling me Winnie
Yeah.
the Pooh is banned in China?
Yes.
Yeah, it's seen as like
Yes,
a
because
he lo-
Because
they're-
someone commented that he had looked like him.
and Homeboy did not like it.
Yes, exactly. In fact, just to make it clear where Potions and Pixels stands on the issue, I'll get this on the screen right here, and maybe we can leave that on for a bit. Thank you so much, Derivative, for giving us that breakdown here, and I definitely want to explore a bit more about the game itself, because we should say this: not only regardless of the game. We should be, I think, having this conversation. But this game also, it should be noted, it's sitting at 85 on Metacritic. Not that we're obsessed with scores here, but we should say that this is an experience that everybody should have. Polygon gave it its third best game of the year for 2019. This is a game that's received so many accolades. So you as a gamer are not able to experience this game, which is a first-person atmospheric horror game, because of this Chinese censorship.
Yeah. On a personal level, I don't really like horror games anyway, so I don't think I'm missing much. But I mean, looking on the graphics, it looks cool. Like, I would be interested in playing it. I might play it a little bit till I got too scared, and then I'd probably quit it. But
Yeah.
I'm done.
But what about the whole question to you all? Like, that's the big thing I want to ask you guys. Is what we're experiencing right now is a really unique time, right? This whole situation has been famously lampooned by South Park. If anybody has recently seen, I think it was last year, they had an episode called "Banned in China," where they talked about how Disney, the NBA, so many other groups who may be willing to take a stand on social issues, domestically here in the United States, are absolutely silent when it comes to the abuses that we're seeing in China, not only among the regular populace, but, the Uyghur minorities and so many other groups, specifically in China. And we can certainly bring up the lack of LGBTQ representation and the legal issues there, which are numerous to say the least. So how do you all feel about this? Because I've been a little surprised, to be honest. There's been a huge backlash on Twitter, but then there's some people I've noticed that are just like, it's not a big deal, kind of just censor your game or embrace the realities of working for the Chinese marketplace. Where do you all stand on this issue?
It's definitely one of those situations where, they're either going to take that stand and lose that marketplace, or they're going to give in and not allow that. As we've seen with companies like Disney and other larger ones, GOG just most recently, they're either, they'll get rid of it completely, like we saw with Devotion, or like with Disney, they have a special version of it for over there in a lot of these cases. So unfortunately, capitalism rules again. And they're, in the way of getting as much money as possible, they're going to try to cause the least amount of social impact.
Wasn't that famously the case with the final Star Wars movie? Wasn't there I want to say at the final kind of victory scenes of sorts, you saw I think a lesbian couple embrace each other, if I'm remembering. I don't.
Yeah, there was something like, it was just like a hug or something like that, and that had to be cut.
And for the Chinese edition, something along those lines. I thought they may have kissed on screen, but I want to check. I'll have to look into that. Keep us honest, folks. If you see that in the chat, or if you see that online, let us know. Zach, you were about to say something. What are your thoughts on this?
It's kind of in line with what Derivative just said. The power of money sort of, speaks a lot louder than most things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to me too, because you brought up. I'm so bad at pronouncing them. The Uyghur minority, is that how you pronounce it?
Uyghur, I think, is.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it kind of speaks to me. I even remember growing up, learning about the Holocaust of, how did the whole world just stand by and let this happen? And you're kind of seeing it today. Like, the whole world is just standing by, letting them do this stuff. And I mean, for me, it's a little eye-opening and, kind of makes you realize that, when I was growing up, I always thought, how did the whole world, just stand by? And, you imagine money and politics has a lot more sway and things than you realize, and that, morality and humanity is not quite as important as the power of the dollar.
Yeah.
So
it's a scary thought for sure. And we
Yeah,
have
it really
on
is.
YouTube, thank you, Nicholas Walker, who said they do kiss at the end of Rise of Skywalker. So it is interesting to think about that, where the entertainment that we even consume here, in that case, obviously, we received, I guess you can say, the original artist intent for the Star Wars people involved. But in this case, with this game and so many others, it's oftentimes the case that the art that we experience, we are starting to get the standardized Chinese edition, where that's just kind of made for the entire global populace. And in this really modern globalized economy, it's going to be really increasingly scary, to the point where you can imagine the next Ubisoft game, it's kind of in vogue to see like a post-apocalyptic United States, but you can imagine if it was set in a post-apocalyptic China or had any sort of political commentary, that wouldn't be the case, which also feeds back into the Chinese narrative that it's okay to kind of depict other nations in a certain state of disarray outside of China itself. David, what are your thoughts about this? Are you disappointed that you can't experience this game now? Do you think maybe would you like to see it on a different platform? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel in this situation?
I guess, disappointment's a good word. I have respect for the art form. This, first of all, it's video games, and it's a juggernaut in of itself, a juggernaut industry. But there are still those people who don't see it as a serious art form, And so I think there's, some of that when you add in the political aspect, and then, the financial aspect. I think all of that is a little bit daunting towards developers. And like the Rigid said, you're just rocking a hard place. Which battle do you fight? Like, which evil do you choose?
Yeah.
Lose the money or fight the political fight. I hope there's something drastic that happens in the future to turn things around. Who knows what that would be? It could be some sort of, I don't know, revolution or some sort of change in leadership. But this is a completely different country we're talking about, completely different countries we're talking about. So, I guess disappointment is the word, and hopefully it doesn't become a whole, a globalized thing as a habit. Because then we're going to wonder what could have been, the art that we're seeing or the game that we're seeing or movies or whatever. Are we going to be continuing to get the original artist's vision, or is it going to be something that's been censored multiple times over before it even got to us? And, who knows what it could have been. So I guess we just
we definitely see that as well, because our country's thought process when it comes to violence compared to sex in films, where sex is rated much more aggressively, and anything, an NC-17 is a death sentence for a film, which is why you don't see NC-17 films really. It's you're losing part of that original artist's vision, and possibly just throwing in a lot more violence as a result.
That's a good point. So I want to ask you all as far as the censorship question, because, it's interesting when they've asked Gabe Newell, the head of Valve, about Steam's policies. The name escapes me for the game right now. It was a game kind of similar to Postal. It was a game where you're kind of just going crazy and essentially on a kill fest of
hatred.
Thank you. And this game was famously controversial because, the question is, should you allow such a vile depiction of violence on your platform? And it's really interesting because in this game, hatred is truly just about like somebody who hates the world and wants to kill everybody. And to paraphrase Gabe Newell and Steam's kind of stance on this is that they shouldn't necessarily be policing what people are releasing. So I'm curious where you all stand on there. Do you want to see a platform take a stance and say, as so many other groups are saying, that this depicts people in a certain way, we're gonna say, it's not allowed on our platform, or it shows sexual or violent activity, we're not going to allow it, or where do you go? Where do you go on this question? Legend?
I think so. I think companies should have the right to do that, because you have to think of, it doesn't just affect you, but it affects other people in certain ways too. I mean, there are people that do have mental disorders, mental illnesses, that can sometimes get fixated on a certain subject and just sort of like wreak havoc on everything, and I think when it comes to censorship too, gaming is an art form. You're absolutely correct on that. I do think that people miss out on it. They just think, oh, people playing games, but I think it limits themselves to age groups too. When you think of video games, you think of kids playing it. You don't think of grown ass adults, sitting at computers or consoles, playing games. And
although it's increasingly changing, especially from like a market force.
It is absolutely increasingly changing. But you don't think, when you think of an adult, a lot of times playing a video game, you're not thinking of Twitch. She's that person streaming it, or that person's just a hobby. You think of there's this grown adult, playing video games to an audience of who, to what, and that's a whole nother topic in and of itself. But you just have to be careful with what you release. I think. I don't think that you should censorship as a whole. I mean, I think there's a fine line between, like what you were saying, that game about hatred, where you're just on a rampage killing everybody. There's that, and then there's watching two men kissing, in a video game. I think there's a difference. If it has some type of evil or could be dangerous connotation, then I think that companies should not do it. Why? Because, as I mentioned previous, a lot of people do have mental health disorders. They don't know that they have them, maybe, and they're struggling in some type of way. And, psychology-wise, they do get fixated, and they can, that could be dangerous for people. But if you're going to censorship, two people who love each other, who find themselves in a game, and it's just pure, and it has just a story and a history of just wanting to teach inclusivity and saying that like if you see two men kissing in the street, like that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that is that would be fine for me, but to have like violence or something that's super overly sexual, like I don't think that should be just willy-nilly, you know what I mean, on a game. Because there are some games, if you scroll on Steam, Juno probably should not be on there because it's very NSFW, or maybe have like a category or some type of parental lock to where only certain, to be able to verify.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that.
We have a very, very basic one on Twitter, not Twitter.
Yeah, and it's just
Steam.
so easy to just
But the verification on Steam is like the same thing I used to do when I was like looking up pornography like in the early dial-up days. I was like, are you 18?
Right?
Sure.
Like,
my birthday is 1920.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Bypass those symptoms,
yeah.
those systems, and that can honestly, I think, be dangerous.
No, I
video
think
games don't cause violence. I'm not trying to say that.
Sure, I feel you on that.
Like I said, there's a lot of people, like I said, that do have, and it's become more prevalent now because people are not really doing anything, so a lot of things can be triggers, sometimes in a violent way, sometimes in a non-violent way, but I think it's a slippery slope when you just allow anything to go on your platform.
I think that's a good point, especially the age-appropriate nature, because, I have two children, I'm generally much more laissez-faire in general about these things and believe in, like, freedom of expression and art, but I agree with you in the sense that definitely we still have to monitor the type of material that kind of we or others are exposed to, and I think we'd all agree that I guess there should be consequences for your actions. So if you are depicting things, as we're discussing today, if it is a homophobic depiction or if it's a depiction that is unnecessary or uncalled for in a violent sort of way, I think those should be called out and there should be consequences accordingly. But I am also grateful for platforms like Itch where people can release their vision, and the games that we're about to discuss now are games that you probably wouldn't see on many other platforms. Because I can imagine those platforms either not seeing them fully as commercially viable or seeing how much they embrace the LGBTQ aspect thematically. And I think I
think that plays in a little bit of it too. But I think, again, people sleep on indies.
Yeah, well, that's David. I think you had a good point there, and that's the thing that concerns me. I mean, do you all think that if this was an issue about a film not getting released or a book, or maybe if it had a bigger celebrity factor? Would this be large? It already is large news, and it's kind of well known in the gaming community. But maybe it would be more so if it was a different traditional form of art that we've seen.
I think so.
That way.
Yes,
I
yeah.
think
I mean,
so.
the big thing about this one right now, though, is one, CD Projekt is not in a lot of people's good graces, so it's definitely got, it's kind of riding the, a shark attack happens. We're going to hear all about these shark attacks because of that situation. I think this one really has resonated, at least for me, from what I've seen, because you can't, unlike Itch, you have to get approval to get onto GOG.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get approval ahead of time. They got it. Then the game is about to get released. They get excited about it. And then they rescind it and claim that the gamers asked them to remove it.
Yeah, it's a bad excuse. How do you all feel about that? Zach, I know you and David.
I honestly think it would have been better if they would have asked GOG if they could put the game on their platform, and GOG just flat out said no at that point.
Yeah. That's a good point. Zach and David, I know you were about to jump in here. To Derigitive's point, yeah, I mean, even from that side of things with GOG, was it a mistake to say we've heard from gamers? Do any of us actually believe there's a ton of gamers out here that are offended by this game and don't want it to be on there? It's a pretty poor excuse.
I don't believe that's
For content that's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of seems like the Streisand effect in the sense that, like, had they not said anything and had they not done anything, I doubt anyone would have cared or have even noticed it, to Derigitive's point. Like, it's just a poster. But, by outright pulling it and doing all this, they have brought way more attention to it than ever would have been brought to it in the first place. It definitely seems like they definitely made the wrong move. They should have just left it alone. I mean, they brought way more attention to it than and now I'm sure Jinping is getting even more people that realizes he looks like Winnie the Pooh had he just left it the hell alone.
I saw it on your Facebook page, and I was like, what does Winnie, they look alike, but what does Winnie the Pooh have anything to do with?
I think it was also the mannerisms too. Like, if you see some of those, like the animation
of
him kind of like walking
down.
Think about it in this sense. Like, I'm sure we've all heard it now. Election's over, so I'm okay talking about this stuff because we know who won. With people saying Trump and Cheeto. Looking like a Cheeto.
Yeah.
Imagine if Trump banned Cheetos in the country, did not allow them in the country.
That's a very good analogy.
That's what it would have been like.
Right?
And then we would have lost the Chester Cheeto game for Super Nintendo, which is I actually enjoyed. I feel you on that. We have a comment right here from our friend Goodsport168 on Twitch. Saying if they've already taken the hit, just re-release it as a Xi Jinping dating sim.
Right. See, I'm not really into the indie horror scene, so I didn't know anything about this game until since it was brought up.
I desperately want to play it. I wanted to play it then, and I want to play it even more so now.
I would try it. Like I said, depends on how scurry it is.
It's
supposed to be amazing.
Not a big horror fan. I thought this butterfly collector game was scary. I cannot do scary games whatsoever, so I definitely don't think I'll be playing this either way. But I definitely wouldn't have known about this game or the comparison had this not happened anyway, which is, the Streisand effect.
Yeah, I think the Streisand effect is
way more attention to it than ever would have been brought to it had they just left it alone.
Yeah. So let me ask one final question, because we got 4 amazing games we got to get to, and I know I've just been super excited. If anybody's been watching our Twitter or any of our posts, we've been posting a lot about this because I think it's a really important subject, and this is only kind of the beginning of this, unfortunately. But last question I have for you guys: what do you recommend, I guess, as the next step for the developers? I think a lot of people have said, hey, throw this on Itch or some other platform. They're clearly kind of willing to reintroduce the game. There's definitely an audience that wants to play it. I feel like we would dedicate a whole episode to this if given the opportunity. And then the last thing, I guess a big thing, is what should we be doing during this time? I mean, should we be, how much scrutiny? Yesterday somebody was talking about how the Chinese company Tencent is invested in so many different companies. They're invested in Ubisoft, Epic, so many different companies, and not to say they've been politically involved to this level, but it's quite imaginable that they are so. Like, where are we willing as gamers to go to say we're boycotting this company, this game, this? What do you all think?
People
Well,
have to be really careful about the criticism when it comes to this. I think we've done a great job on that, but it can be really easy, and I've seen this a lot, even just through Twitter, to take the xenophobic route.
True.
And criticize the Chinese people over this. This is straight up the government censorship. It is not representative of the people of China. They're dealing with enough shit as it is.
Yeah, good point.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel you on that. Zach, what were your thoughts?
Well, it's a tough call. I mean, I think ethical consumption is a very hard line to walk these days. Because
it is.
Everywhere you look, I mean, something's bad. I'm not supposed to eat Jimmy John's because the dude's a poacher. I'm not supposed to eat here. I'm not supposed to do this. And so it's hard to really walk that line. And, I think, protesting with your wallet is absolutely a great way to go about it. But it can be hard to do consistently because, as you said, they're in Ubisoft, they're in Epic Games. Where do you go from there if you are boycotting China? I mean, they're such a ubiquitous presence in every part of our economy now. It's hard. I mean, it's just flat out hard. So it's kind of a tough question to answer. What can we do as average consumers to help the plight of as Georgia was saying, the Chinese citizens? It's hard.
Yeah, good point. We have a comment here on Twitch from good friend Darth Sabulba saying, if a massive amount of gamers can boycott it, a massive amount can bring it back, with massive in quotes. I feel you on that. David and Legend, any final thoughts about this before we move on?
Actually,
you go ahead, David.
Oh, okay. I actually really like what that last comment was.
Yeah.
What he said about the fan. If quote unquote a massive amount of the gamers complain, quote unquote, then I think if the gamers really want to see this game and if we want to see things change or what have you, then our voices, like Zach said, our wallets, and then our voices. They apparently listen to us. We've seen video game companies and producers and developers do respond to the gamers and the players because long story short, that does hit them in the bottom line. So speak up, say something, communicate however you can, whatever you can do, and hopefully we can see something happen.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I'm thinking back at Activision Blizzard and the Blitzchung incident, and and that's what we've been posting too. We've been posting May memes. May stands with Hong Kong, and I think it's important for us to keep that in mind as well. That this is a larger issue that is affecting everybody involved, and as Derivative said, we should be keeping the Chinese citizens in mind throughout.
I think so too. I think the best way to put focus on any country that's going through a significant amount of plight is to play these games and bring awareness. I mean, I think it depends on the type of person that you are and what exactly. It's got nothing to do with what you stand for or your own personal morals. I think it just, if you see something that is going on and you want to stand by it or you want to, speak out about it, then, don't stand still, move.
Yeah. That's an excellent point. And with that, we'll leave you all with this last message here on Twitch, which I think is really great. Also from GoodSport168, writing, imagine what would happen if non-imaginary gamers wrote into them. GOG, that is. Imagine, yes, if they're hearing from gamers. I think if everybody who's watching right now, and hopefully you can spread the word about this, I've sent a message to GOG. I think everybody else should, and say, hey, this is the type of content we want to see, and we don't want to see you kind of buckle to this pressure. And also we should highlight and reward companies that do stand up to this. So I'm hoping that there's still an opportunity there for them to make us proud and reverse course. So that was our conversation about devotion. I imagine we will be discussing that again in the future because that is definitely a ongoing hot button topic. Let's jump in to our focus this week. Again, is on LGBTQ-focused games. The first one we are going to be discussing is called Queer Space Pirates. Specifically, we're looking at episode 1. I want to give a brief little description here from the itch page, and I'll drop the itch link in here so you can experience this game. In fact, let me do that right now. So definitely make sure to check this out. Queer Space Pirates, we should say, created by Nathaniel, who I believe is in the chat right now. So please feel free to jump in. Claire, Alex, and Wei. Their information is on the itch page. I just dropped there with audio by Avery, and you can find all their social media pages. With the content and narrative consulting by Avery and Ruby, you can find that information there. The game, here's the description we have for you all. Exploring space and sexuality. Queer Space Pirates is a narrative point-and-click game. Use the left mouse button to click on objects and characters throughout the scenes and progress through dialogue. The escape key opens up a pause menu. Oh, I guess I'm getting into the specifics there. Now you know then you have to press this button to do this. No, that's it. Let me just say this last piece right here. The first prototype of episode 1 introduces one of the Queer Space Pirates, Apollo. You'll learn a little about his adventures and how he found himself out amongst the stars. This whole game probably, I would say, takes about 15 minutes or so to go through. Panel, how do we feel about Queer Space Pirates? What did you think about episode 1?
I thought it was really cute. I actually, I found myself laughing at Nora the robot a lot.
Yes.
She was probably my favorite part of the game.
Shout out to Nora, yes.
She was a sassy little thing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I was kind of shocked when it ended, only because I didn't know it was that short when I had played it, and I wanted it to be longer. I was excited for episode 2 because it seemed like it was, getting somewhere. We were learning about sort of the relationship with his friend, so I was excited to see where it would go next. But Nora was definitely the highlight for me.
Yeah, the writing was really solid here.
It was, and I was I was curious about his past because I clicked on that little rainbow flag on his wall, and he was like, "I want to take this down, but I can't get it off." And I was like, "Oh no, why do you want to take that down?" There's definitely some foreshadowing of him struggling with his sexuality and everything. So I'm really curious to see where that goes, and it's obvious he has a huge crush on the guy that we meet, so I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes when the next episode comes out.
Yeah, and we should say we already got some amazing background here from one of the developers. Nathaniel here on Twitch is saying, first, oh no, this is my game. I guess you're excited. I hope you're excited for us to talk about it. Legend, of course, saying needs more episodes. For sure, we're excited about that. Nathaniel also saying this was our final year university project, so we are hoping to do more. It was all developed in a few months. That's pretty impressive to be able to drop this. I definitely want more, because you feel like this is one of those games where you can see the heart that was pushed into kind of fleshing out this world. And we're just getting this initial glimpse, and Zach, as you said, I was feeling I want more opportunities for dialogue. I want more choice, those kind of elements. But as a first element to kind of start fleshing out a world, I think there's something here.
I agree. I thought the game was absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to make me laugh. And that little banter between Apollo and Nora on the ship, I was cracking up the whole time.
Yeah.
So kudos to that. Like you said, the writing is really good. But then when I guess Apollo goes, I don't want to give away.
We're spoiler heavy here. Don't worry. Everybody watches. Okay. Indie Game Club is spoiler fest.
Sorry to but when Apollo's there in his room, and so Zach was saying, you're clicking all the little things. So many little nuances that I was picking up on.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to explore. The rainbow sticker on the walls. Then he seemed to have some sort of shame or trepidation about it. The photo, and then you meet that person.
Yeah.
And there's some kind of thing in that relationship. And I was like, what is this that I'm feeling? Was it a previous romantic relationship? Was it just a mentor, mentee relationship? What was happening there? Because it's something deeper there than just, there was an emotion there. And then, of course, the way it ends, like Zach said, it was abrupt, but, the main character had a reaction that I can't wait. I want to know. I need to know what happened.
Exactly.
So I want the story. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Love it, love it. And what did you all think as far as the graphical approach here? I like this whole reminded me of like traditional '90s kind of era point and click adventures, but of course with a more cutesy 3D element to it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I knew you were gonna love this,
graphics,
Legend. I knew you would.
Colors, like
Yeah.
bright colors.
I know.
I'm in it. I'm in it. Games are so dark nowadays. You're always like, what is this? That's how I get scared most times. Just normal games.
Just read and try to figure out.
And I'm old too, so I gotta
come
think a little bit. But the graphics are so cute. Like you could tell somebody took their time. They took their time. Yeah. The graphics were love. The graphics were light. Like it just. I think the graphics. I think really is essential to a game. It pulls the game together because. The character interactions were absolutely fantastic, but to see the environment that they're interacting in as well, I think is really important. And it plays into the story as well, I think. Like you said, the sticker, like, us, me, I click everything. I was like, what does this do? What does that do? Did this thing do something? Like, I was on all of it. And I will do a series. I will do whatever you want me to do to ensure that there are more episodes because it was, I love this game. It was amazing. I loved it. It was fantastic.
I thought with the graphics, it was really neat because with cell shading, there tends to be like hard, dark lines, like outlines around everything. Yeah. And I really liked how there weren't in this. It was still cell shading, but it all kind of like blended together. It was really, I thought the graphics were really neat.
Yeah.
It was very visually appealing. I really liked that bar you go to at the very end of the first chapter with like all the lights hanging down and everything. But I thought that definitely the strong suit was the environment. I thought they did a really good job sort of building the spaces that you interact with.
For sure. And while we have Nathaniel here in the chat, like I want to throw some questions his way and just get some thoughts here. As far as I'm curious, what plans are for potential future episodes. If you could drop a hint potentially there, and also I'm curious if you all were thinking about this as well. So at the end of the episode 1, I was curious how much of that was planned for the future. You famously read about like shows and movies where it's almost written piecemeal, like, or as it kind of goes, or how much has him and his or his team, I should say, how much has this been thought through? So do they have episode 3 or 4 or 5 in mind? And I would like to see some more choice and gameplay in that regard. If you were a regular watcher of Indie Game Club, you know that we don't really discriminate in regards to what defines a game and what doesn't. But I definitely would like to see more opportunities to personalize it with the choices that you can make. Like we were talking about, can you choose to be romantically involved in certain things, or can you choose to express your personality in others? Derivative, what did you think about the game?
So I think the writing was incredibly solid in this. It is incredibly hard to write comedy.
It is,
and they absolutely nailed it. And with how short it was, it was like 10, 15 minutes. To be able to get that much characterization out, like you already had an idea. I mean, of like what their motivations were, and kind of you might have made your own fanfic in your head of like where this was going. But you kind of knew the mindset of all the characters by the end, including the robot, which is, again, impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nora, I think, is more Nora. I think. Are we all agreed on that? Is anybody anti-Nora in this panel? I need to know.
It reminded me a lot of GLaDOS from